Woohoo! Hey, good morning. It's Monday morning, the Monday after the big game, the Monday after the big game, the Super Bowl. So, President Donald Trump, he made history yesterday. He was actually the first sitting president to attend the Super Bowl on Sunday, like the first sitting president to ever attend a Super Bowl live. Okay, so he stole the show, obviously, away from Taylor Swift. If you guys, I think it was like 40-22. I went to bed. I'm sorry. I mean, Kansas City Chiefs. I wasn't really, you guys hear my Red Kingdom. I'm pretty sure that's the Kansas City Chiefs song. I like the Red Kingdom bumper music, not because of the Kansas City Chiefs, but um, it's kind of like the, MAGA anthem. I love that song. It's great. And it became really popular like shortly after President Donald Trump announced that he was going to be running in 2024. And it's kind of like the conservative anthem. So that's why that's my bumper music. Everybody assumes I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan. No. I didn't really care who won or lost yesterday. 40-22 was the score. They lost the Chiefs. So Trump, he received just this like roars of cheering from the Superdome crowd. Okay. And when he was shown on the big screen. Now, they didn't show him a lot on the big screen. That's what I noticed is, I mean, he's breaking he's making history here. Why didn't they show him a couple of times? I would have showed him a couple of times his reaction to some of these plays. I thought that would have been, a smart production choice. No. They showed Taylor Swift way more times than Donald Trump, but they stopped showing her so much after she was like mocked. Okay, so she was booed by everybody in the Superdome when she was shown on the jumbotron. So Trump received cheers, she received boos. Swift is there watching her boyfriend, Kansas City Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce. He suffered, of course, a crushing loss, 40-22 to the Philadelphia Eagles, which is the team she actually grew up rooting for. So that's kind of interesting. She, was switched teams, obviously, because her boyfriend is on that team, or boyfriend for now, I should say. But Trump mocked her on Truth Social after the game. Take a listen to this. He credited his followers of his Make America Great Again movement for the boos. He said the only one who had a tougher night last night than the Kansas City Chiefs was Taylor Swift. She got booed out of the stadium. MAGA is very unforgiving. Haha. Yeah, so it was kind of incredible to watch. I watched a little bit of it. I didn't see any Elon Musk commercials. Now, I woke up this morning, tried to look him up. I don't know if he actually, it was rumored that he had, purchased like $40 million worth of commercials trying to kind of buy up PSAs to inform the public how much of their tax dollars went towards garbage. I didn't see any, but I've got to do some digging this morning yet, and I haven't been able to find anything about the Elon Musk commercials. I did watch the new Budweiser commercial. We'll get to that. They're trying to make amends. And I don't know about you, but are you ready to forgive Bud Light? Are you ready to forgive Anheuser-Busch? Text me, let me know, 309-451-9299. I think a lot of people aren't ready to forgive them. And I don't know if they're ever going to come back from this whole Dylan Mulvaney thing where they put his face on a can and had him be the Bud Light ambassador. I don't know if they're going to come back from that. I sure hope that they do. I mean, I think everybody should have some sort of redemption story, right? DEI as they step away from DEI, but I don't know. I don't know if they're ever going to come back. So Trump has been at odds with Taylor Swift, obviously, because she endorsed Kamala Harris, but he's been at odds with her. Probably stemming back to Biden. I believe that she endorsed Biden as well. She's just a terrible role model for children, for young girls. Just a terrible, terrible role model. I never got into Taylor Swift. My sister did. And I'll just say this. I was into Carrie Underwood and I turned out okay. No, so I liked Carrie Underwood always. She was a Christian. Taylor Swift, she just... I don't know, her music and the lyrical choice, it just doesn't, it's not relatable, to a lot of young women out there who aren't hussies, right? So Taylor Swift, She endorsed Kamala Harris. We know this. And Trump appeared actually shortly after she endorsed Kamala Harris on Fox and Friends. And he talked about how he liked Patrick Mahomes' wife. So that's the quarterback, the Chiefs quarterback, Brittany Mahomes. He likes her much better than Taylor Swift. Brittany Mahomes has suggested support for Donald Trump through her social media activity, and by suggesting support, she has liked a couple of, Donald Trump campaign things on Instagram. She's never posted anything supportive of Donald Trump, really. She just kind of makes suggested. She has suggested, she suggests her support through her social media activity. So on Truth Social, after Swift's endorsement of Harris, Trump goes, "I hate Taylor Swift." For NFL fans, a lot of them, I don't like the NFL. I've never been a fan of the NFL. I've always watched college football. I think it's more interesting considering these guys in the NFL, they're pros, and it's kind of, a robotic almost in a way. There's no mistakes, so it's kind of boring. I don't even really like football all that much. You guys know that I'm a Formula One fan, so I don't even really watch football all that much. And if I'm going to watch it, I'm definitely going to watch college ball. But for NFL fans, Swift has become kind of like a contentious figure, I would say, because of this relationship she has with Kelsey. It began in September 2024, and most NFL broadcast cameras, they pan to her multiple times during the game. So she has been credited by the NFL and, the Chiefs, because they say that she's brought in a ton of women fans. If they break up, they're not really fans. Okay. I don't think that they're going out there and purchasing merchandise. Maybe they are because they're crazy, the Swiftie girls, but maybe, I don't know. But for most NFL fans who are going to buy your tickets, who are going to be the people, your bread and butter, okay, they're nauseated at the fact that Taylor Swift is shown on these jumbotrons all of the time, and there's constant visuals of Taylor Swift, and nobody really likes that because she's not a football player. Okay, so it was also pretty noticeable at the game last night, where Brittany Mahomes and Taylor Swift, they were kind of at two separate, like they were noticeably distant from each other at the game. And however, they continued to show public affection in other ways. They were at a group dinner with Kelsey, Patrick Mahomes, just days before the Super Bowl. So Brittany Mahomes and Taylor Swift, I don't know what their relationship is like, but it's kind of interesting that they were noticeably distant at the game yesterday. Usually they kind of sit by each other. In the games, Trump also spoke out about the NFL's new kickoff format. Now, I'm not a big fan of football, but I noticed it was really different. I usually watch like college football, and it was really different from the way college football does it. Okay, so Trump also spoke out against this new kickoff format, which he's been a vocal critic of since the first week of the season, I guess. Trump said this on Truth Social: "The worst part of the Super Bowl by far was watching the kickoff, where the ball was sailing through the air. The entire field was frozen stiff. College football does not do it and won't. Whose idea was this to ruin the game?" I love Donald Trump. He's so funny. This new rule, I don't know why the NFL does this. They come up with all these new rules, and it kind of makes it boring, the game. So it's called a dynamic kickoff. I totally agree with Donald Trump here, where, it's more interesting to watch the kickoff for college. I don't really know all of the NFL rules, to be honest with you, and how it differs really from college, because I don't watch it that often, but I could definitely tell something was weird from normal NFL games. It's because they made this rule change, I guess, and they implemented what's called a dynamic kickoff. Now, this was implemented in hopes of decreasing injuries, boring, and limiting high-speed collisions and incentivizing returns after the rate of returns fell to an all-time low of 21.8% last season. So I'm not much of a sports gal, but I will say this: it was really cool to see Donald Trump up there. I didn't see any Elon Musk commercials. I haven't been able to see any, so I'm going to try to look for them and do a deep dive on the internet here, try to find some Elon Musk commercials. It was rumored that he was going to spend like $4 million on 3 commercials to tell you where your tax money has been going through USAID. That's been a very hot button issue in the news the last couple of weeks because there's like millions of dollars going to sex changes in Ecuador or something crazy like that. So we're going to get to that, but I also want to get to Gavin Newsom, victim blaming the masses here. Newsom has just said that Pacific Palisades, which is kind of like a part of LA, it's a rich, ritzy part of LA, most likely single family zoning, by the way. Pacific Palisades, they have to rebuild, and then in order to rebuild, they have to consider climate change. So essentially what Gavin Newsom is doing here, he's declaring a builder's war, meaning he wants high density housing to be built, which means low income housing, which means, they have to, change the zoning there, likely from single family to multifamily zoning. And the liberals love that because they want everybody to live on top of each other in little pods. And it's a really disturbing lifestyle. Most Americans reject that type of lifestyle. Study after study shows us that we don't like urban life and that we like suburban life. Which means we drive into work, we drive into the city. So we don't want to live in the city and we don't want to live on top of each other in apartments. Study after study has shown that. Studies have shown that, this whole downtown Bloomington streetscape, that's why I'm so peeved off about it. Every single study ever tells us that a lot of people don't really interact with that kind of infrastructure. For example, there was a study done where the city, they spent so much money and so much time trying to craft walkways, and they wanted to design where people walk, throughout the downtown area and get people to walk into the businesses. And they took so much time building these sidewalks, the benches, and crafting it very, very carefully. But at the end of the day, all of the people who were visiting the downtown area, they just kind of walked through the grass. They didn't even really use the benches. They sat on curbs. It's because Americans color outside of the lines. And Gavin Newsom is trying to force this high density housing in Pacific Palisades. He's not letting the crisis go to waste. I'm going to be right back. We got to take a quick break, but there's so much to get to today. The United Nations, this UN official says that we've got to stop giving billions of our tax dollars to, it says if we stop giving billions of dollars to our tax dollars to Africa via the USAID, because we were funneling billions of dollars to the USA through the USAID to Africa to combat AIDS. This UN official is suggesting that 6.3 million patients with AIDS are going to die in Africa if they don't receive this funding. I'm going to talk about it here next on Conservative Cat Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Hey, good morning. Go ahead and smash that like button. Share this out with your friends. Yes, we are not forgiving Bud Light. Yeah, so my husband, he goes, man, I really want to drink Bud Light again, but I've been boycotting it since the whole Dylan Mulvaney thing, and I just don't think I'm ready to do it again. And I think that there's a lot of guys out there who just won't drink Bud Light ever again. I don't know if you come back from the scandal where Dylan Mulvaney was a Bud Light ambassador. I don't know if you are ever going to come back from that. But they're trying really hard because Anheuser-Busch now, they're calling on vendors, they're calling on restaurants and manufacturers, distributors, to remove domestic beer, to not refer to, Bud Light, Budweiser as domestic beer. You got your domestics when you sit down at a restaurant, you order your beer. But they want to change that word from domestic to American beers. So he's calling, the CEO of Anheuser-Busch is calling on, everybody to change their language here and call it American, which I think it is more accurate. And I don't really like the word domestic either. It's kind of patriotic, if you ask me. It's pretty cool, but clearly they're trying to make up for what they did with the whole Dylan Mulvaney thing. It's very clear. Their commercial last week or yesterday in the Super Bowl commercial, it was really good. They brought back the Bud horses, the Budweiser horses, and those were really cool to watch. And they're calling on, distributors and vendors to call the beer not a domestic beer, but an American beer. We're going to be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Hey, good morning. It's a Monday morning, 6:25 a.m. Looks like we might be getting some snow a little bit later. I heard that it might start at about midnight tonight. But I don't know. I'm looking at the radar, and I'm not seeing snow for Tuesday, but more so on Wednesday. So Wednesday is the most likely day that we're gonna get the snow. Okay, so we might have a little bit Monday on like midnight, so Tuesday early in the morning, but we're looking more towards Wednesday for the snow. So I'm a little excited about that. I love the snow. If I don't have to go out and it's going to be brutal if you got to drive somewhere, right? So if you got to go and drive into work. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about this story. Gavin Newsom, he's decided to victim blame the masses here, and he's essentially called a builder's war or declared a builder's war. So what do I mean by that? So I don't know who was the worst tyrant during the pandemic. I'm pretty sure it was Governor J.B. Pritzker, but Gavin Newsom is definitely up there. Top three: Whitmer, Pritzker, and Newsom. They were all up there for greatest tyrants during the pandemic. Now, he has implied that he has no plan to change course, stating that he is not going to let a good disaster go to waste. Essentially, that's what he's implied here. He's keeping his plan, the 2028 plan. I told you this was the smart cities plan, and he's not going to let this go to waste. And he wants to build his George Soros smart 15-minute city. Okay. So he's not going to let this disaster go to waste. We know all of this, okay? But this is crazy because all of these wildfires in California are completely preventable. We know this. It came down to bad policy, incompetence, and a blatant disregard for a plan, okay, to plan land management, water management, all of it just completely incompetent. Governor Gavin Newsom has decided to victim blame now the masses here and punish them, and he's pointing a finger at them, and he's blaming everybody but himself, okay? So the city of Los Angeles should have filled, okay, the Palisades Reservoir over a year ago. So there's an actual map out there. You can see it. It's this huge reservoir, and it's completely incompetent, and arguably, I think it's criminal that they didn't fill this big reservoir full of water. They didn't fill it with water, and they're, arguably saying, arguably, this is criminal in saying that, oh, we're not going to fill this, okay, knowing that the area is prone to wildfires. So that mistake, not filling that reservoir, is not even compared to so-called climate change, okay? Climate change of fires, produced fires, which doesn't even make a whole lot of sense, okay? So according to Gavin Newsom, this reservoir thing is not something that we should be worried about. The fact that the city of Los Angeles should have filled that over a year ago, the Palisades Reservoir. This is quite literally just a big pool of water that they could have used. He's deciding to point a finger at the victims and blaming them for, I don't know, not doing rain dances or doing communist things where they conserve water and not take showers and not water their grass and, not use gas-powered vehicles and lawnmowers. He wants everybody to go to electric. So he's blaming people essentially for not doing rain dances. And now these people may never get to rebuild because Newsom, he wants it to be done in a certain way, the rebuild of this, okay? So some of these people might not actually get their home rebuilt the way it was supposed to be rebuilt. He wants to go in there and build all of these high-density housing. So not the houses that were there before, but high-density housing. Take a listen. Here we go.
For rebuilding would be 6 to 9 months. Is that going to happen? And should people rebuild in some parts of California, given how high the fire risk is?
Yeah, you can't rebuild the same. So we have to rebuild with science. We have to build with climate reality in mind. We have to look at infrastructure, redundancy systems, ingress, egress as it relates to emergency management and planning, materials, all of that is being reviewed and reconsidered, and with the latest iterations in terms of understanding and technology. And I say technology in the context of how, again, we build the infrastructure to keep it safe, to address undergrounding of lines, how we address the larger issues of redundancy in terms of systems. But more important than anything else is the need to get the debris removed. 30 days to do the hazardous waste. We want to get 6 to 9 months, the rest of the debris done. Concurrently, people are getting permits. So this is all happening, rolling together. And we want to see construction very shortly. And in the next few years, we want to see hundreds, thousands of homes rebuilt.
But I think there's a big question about how do some Californians do that, right? You have State Farm announcing that it has an average 22% interim rate hike for homeowners. The fair insurance plan for the state is just bogged down right now. Your dad, I believe, is on that plan, if I recall. Californians are saying they're not getting the help they need from FAIR. It's really confusing.
Well, FAIR's not a state plan. It's not a taxpayer-funded plan. It's a syndicate pool run by the insurance market itself. And it's the insurer of last resort. And it's existed back to Ronald Reagan in 1968. As it relates to that plan and their exposure, they have reinsurance, a significant amount of reinsurance. We feel strongly at this moment, and again, this changes in real time, that the plan will be able to absorb the losses ultimately. Now, as it relates to the larger issue of the insurance market, not unique to California by any stretch of the imagination, what's happening with insurance, and this is the reality, the new reality of extremes, extreme heat, extreme drought. You have droughts and rain bombs. You have flooding at the same time you're dealing with droughts, all happening concurrently. There's a new reality, the world we're living in. And if you're not believing science, you have to believe your own eyes, your own lived experience. And the reality is the insurance market understands it better than anyone else. The market and Mother Nature's are going to have to change the way we live and do business in the context of how we plan, how we do land use, zoning into the future along the lines of your question. We have to wake up to this reality. We cannot be in denial about what's going on with Mother Nature, again, around the globe, not just
so what just to sort of pin you down, what does that mean for the rebuilding in some of these high-risk areas?
Just more sophisticated design and planning. Remember, Altadena, many of those homes were done in the 20s and 30s and 40s for a world that no longer exists from a climate perspective. And so the ability to absorb a deeper understanding as you rebuild it presents itself anew in a profound and we hope impactful way. So I'm concerned about it, but I'm not concerned about our resourcefulness to address it with the most modern standards anywhere in the world. By the way, California leads the nation already in building zoning standards. Our ability now to take it to the next level, to be a model for the rest of the country, presents itself.
Okay. So I wanted to share that with you. I know it was a little bit long, but this is important. Number one, the woman there interviewing him on CNN, total unethical journalism there. What even was that interview? I mean, it was a PR stunt. I mean, that's what they did with Governor Gavin Newsom in this interview. It was for him to get some good press and good public relations. The Newsom regime just got softball questions right there. Softball questions. She didn't press him on anything. She didn't ask him about the reservoir, why that wasn't filled, nothing. There was no pressing going on. And really what this was, it was a chance for him to lecture the CNN audience, what little there is, and the masses, try to get the masses to feel bad about things that don't even make sense, okay, to lecture them about climate change. And, he really just talked in circles. It was kind of like a Kamala-like way of answering this question, talking in circles. And he said, quote, "We can't build because of entering and exiting. And the people who owned the land did not do enough to prevent these fires because of the climate change, and we now will rezone to our liking." That's what he said. He's going to rezone to their liking, which means they're going to do multifamily housing, okay? He's victim blaming. He shows no remorse for these people who just lost their homes, no respect for these victims of the mess his party created, the Democrat Party created via not filling that reservoir, via the lack of land management, creating essentially a Kindle box, of California, where everything is so dry and just a tiny little spark is going to make this fire just become so massive. That's what's going on in California. And instead of showing remorse, he's blaming the victims here. He says, we can't build because of the entering and exiting. And the people who owned the land did not do enough to prevent these fires. Okay. And to prevent climate change. Because of climate change, we now will rezone this to our liking. So he wants to build it with climate change in mind. He wants to build it to his liking, which means high density areas, urban life. He's lecturing people on TV as if they're, toddlers. That's the feeling I got. Very condescending. And he's, the only thing that he didn't do was point at the camera and like shake his finger at the victims here. And plus, what does climate reality even mean? He goes, we're entering this new reality. What does that even mean? Okay, these people make up terms and then they call it science, even though it has nothing to do with anything except it's an anti-human agenda. Okay, so then he goes on and he talks about the California insurance crisis, which has everything to do with the Democrat policies. By the way, we see it here in Illinois as well. These companies, they can't make a profit in the state, in California, so they know that they got to get out of California, and they completely disregard the risk of fire, the policy, okay, via policy. They don't do any land management, any water management, and the insurance companies see that. They keep up on policy, and they're like, no, a fire's going to happen, and we're pulling out, and we're not going to cover these people because this is bound to happen. And people have been calling this out for years. Donald Trump called it a few months before being elected president on November 5th. Okay, so people have known that a fire like this was going to happen in California for 5+ years. Okay, and the insurance companies were, no different. They knew that this would happen, and it's regardless of the direction of the wind. In fact, a lot of people were seen setting these fires. Arsonists were setting these fires, which is another thing. Policy, Democrat policies allows for violent criminals and crazies to be out there on the streets to set these fires. So, this might seem like a normal leftist interview. The reason why I pulled it today is because it's not a leftist interview about climate change. You might have heard that and you were like, okay, Gavin Newsom is talking about climate change. He's, shaking his finger at the evil corporations, the evil insurance companies. But we all know it's not climate change. We all know it's bad policy. I know, Kat, it was the land management. It was the water management. I know the policies with the insurance companies, they can't make money and they aren't assessing the fire risk. And the insurance companies knew that about California, knew that there was going to be a massive fire. And they weren't preventing that risk at all. So they didn't want to insure anybody. We know the real story here. But what's really interesting about this interview is he is declaring a builder's war. Okay, the victims who want to rebuild their homes won't be able to rebuild them the same way. Okay, if they lived in a nice, single family home, they won't be able to rebuild that because they're going to be rebuilding. And likely they're going to make it so expensive. California is going to make it so expensive here to rebuild that the only ones who are going to be able to rebuild are these mega corporations, and they're going to build these high density areas. They're going to take low density areas like suburb type living, white picket fence, nice house for your family. They're going to build high density housing. And this is the left salivating over their leftist utopia dream where everybody lives on top of each other. I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. It's going to be a leftist utopia. No crisis. Let no crisis go to waste. That's what we're looking at here with Gavin Newsom. He wants to build these high density areas now that everything is completely destroyed by the fire. He's going to go in there and build it the way he wants. And it has nothing to do with climate change. Okay. And he goes, we're going to have to go in there and consider climate change when we're rebuilding. Nothing to do with climate change, because guess what? The fires had nothing to do with climate change. In fact, somebody pointed out that, we now know that some of the fires were set by arsonists, people with matches and fire. Like they went out there and they started these fires. So it's just extreme communism. The biggest danger California faces is extreme communism before woke fires existed. It's communism. Yeah, before these fires even existed, what's threatening California is the communism, and that all ties into the insurance, right? The insurance companies can't do business there in the state because it's not profitable. Number one, because the state is completely ignoring the fire risk and has completely ignored the fire risk there for multiple years, 5+ years. People have said there is going to be a fire. I mean, this was predicted years ago. I think like 5 years ago, people were predicting this. Firefighters were saying that this was going to happen because of the lack of planning and the lack of land management. You need to do controlled burns. And when you implement these green weenie projects, you wind up changing the landscape to a degree where it's dangerous. Okay, when you implement green weenieism, okay, one, it's unnatural to not have carbon. Okay, the trees need carbon to live. Okay, so when you take carbon out of the air, you sequester it, you shove it into the ground, which is what Illinois wants to do. I'm hoping that Donald Trump federally bans these kinds of projects. I know RFK Jr., he had a really cool documentary about the carbon sequestration pipelines. But when you start doing this, like, it's pseudoscience. When you start doing that, you run the risk of harming people because you are unnaturally trying to, it's anti-human. A lot of these policies and what you're trying to implement. For example, I've talked about this before, and farmers don't like when I talk about this, but no-till. Okay. It's very natural farming practices, biblically. You can even look back at the Bible, how they used to farm. I think Jesus actually as a form of punishment, kind of, not really. I mean, he had to teach them a lesson, right? He had a couple of his disciples. I can't remember. I think it was Peter. There was another disciple where he had him go out and till the land. Okay. Tilling the land is a very common farming practice. It's laid out in the Bible. Basic instructions before leaving Earth. That's the way I look at the Bible, right? And farming practices have always included tilling. And this isn't super recent. I think it was like in the 1970s or something where they implemented this no-till. And now, you fast forward, a few decades, we're dealing with the repercussions of this and the ramifications of this, where because of that no-tilling, we're starting to see things like dust storms. Okay, so here in the state of Illinois, over the last 5 years, we've experienced, I think, like 3 major dust storms, and they're very rare. And we've noticed where the dust is being kicked up. Now, people argue that tilling actually makes it worse. But common sense will tell you we haven't had dust storms like this in intensely for years. And what has changed? Since 1970, more and more farmers have, in fact, they're incentivized to do this via tax credits to go out there and do no-till, not till their land at all. And farmers like it, one, because you can make way more money doing it. Okay, that's why farmers really like no-till. You make way more money and you can produce way more crops with the no-till strategy. I get it. Maybe we have to sacrifice it in order to keep up with the demand of feeding people. But we have to recognize that the no-till practices also change the landscape, the environment in such a way that could be dangerous and have consequences. So yeah, not only that, but also, you take carbon out of the air and you sequester it and you put it into the ground. We know in Mississippi where people almost died, no deaths, thank God. But it's very dangerous to sequester carbon into the ground. And a lot of these, also the EV cars, I don't think I have to tell you, Rivian, their entire parking lot combusted, okay, just got set on fire by these electric vehicles. The solar panels, they just combust. The Olympia High School, the rooftops, Augustana College, Walmart. In Walmarts, they stopped putting solar panels on there because they started causing fires. Farmington, there was this solar panel fire. It's very dangerous, the green weenie policies that they want to implement. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Yes, they want to make their leftist utopia. They're not letting a good crisis go to waste. That's Governor Gavin Newsom. Now, they're going to make it so expensive for you to rebuild your home there in Palisades, the Pacific Palisades. They're going to make it so expensive to where the only people who are going to be able to rebuild are mega corporations, and they're going to turn what was formerly a low density area into a high density area. They're going to probably rezone this into multifamily housing. They're going to make apartments. And it's because Governor Gavin Newsom wants his leftist utopia where everybody has solar panels, where everybody's driving an electric vehicle. And in most cases, they don't even drive. They just walk 15 minutes to wherever, and they live right up on top of each other. Now, study after study shows that Americans don't like that kind of lifestyle. Okay. We like the suburban life. We like driving into the city for work. It's just the way the American culture is. Okay. We like to drive out and to our homes. We don't like to live on top of each other. Okay. It's just common sense. How many people do you know that like live in apartment life and like love it? Nobody really loves it. Okay. Some people, maybe the wacko liberals, but people like, their suburban life, and people like, not living on top of each other. People like their single family housing. Okay. You can't force people to live on top of each other. People like having families and kids and enough space for those families. Now, only the left can take California, which is a beautiful state, much like Illinois. Only the left can take Illinois and make it into something that not even third world nations see. Okay. I mean, this is a situation where not even third world countries see this, where a tyrant comes in and says, no, I'm building it the way I want to build it because I'm considering climate change. No, no, no. All of these considerations. What, you're going to put solar panels on top of the mega corporation high density apartment living or housing? You're going to put solar panels and then burn down those high density areas with the solar panels on top of the roofs. A lot of the green weenie nonsense is very dangerous. Electric vehicles, I don't think I have to tell you. Rivian, I think they just had a bunch of cars just set on fire. Okay, and that's not too out of the ordinary for that kind of vehicle. You've got carbon sequestration. Look at what happened in Satartia, Mississippi, where those people almost died because of a carbon pipeline bursting. Okay, a lot of the green weenie policies and fixes are actually super, super dangerous. For example, in California, the lack of burning and doing controlled burns, they say that causes methane or whatever carbon doing controlled burns, but they're actually really helpful in preventing wildfires, controlled burns. This is something that we've always done, and Governor Gavin Newsom, via his rule as governor, they haven't implemented these kinds of practices, or they stopped implementing them, and now we're seeing we're seeing the aftermath, and it's really unfortunate because many of these voters, they blame climate change, and they won't hold these people accountable. And I just don't know why, because that's not doing you any favors. If you're a California voter, if you're an Illinois voter, you keep voting these people in, and you're blaming climate change, and you're not holding these people accountable. It doesn't do you any favors. You're the one who always is victimized by the leftist policies. I got to take a quick break, but I want to talk about the Episcopalian bishop here. I don't know, this bishop, Marianne Budd. You guys remember her. She attacked Donald Trump, scolded him with lies on his second day of office. Okay, he was only in office for 2 days, and she scolded him. Now, there's a reason why she scolded him and attacked him. You guys remember the video. I will play it again. But there's a reason why she is losing her money. Okay, 53 million taxpayer funds, dollars worth of taxpayer funds, went to several government programs, and they funneled into her organization. And what her organization does, they resettle migrants, which is, I don't even want to call it resettling migrants. It's human trafficking. Okay, you're taking people from their homeland and you're putting them in the United States, and you're exploiting their labor, and you're taking illegals. and bringing them here illegally, and you're subjecting them to deportation, which is the most inhumane thing I think a lot of these nonprofits do. They bring them here knowing full well that it's against the law, and they're trafficking them over this border. And that's what this is. It's human trafficking, and then they get paid. It's like legalized, state-sanctioned human trafficking. It's no different than the cartels charging these people $3,000 a head and saying, "Hey, yeah, I'll carry you across the border. I'll drive you across the border into the United States." It's no different because these nonprofit organizations are collecting up all of the fees and the money from these poor migrants who are being exploited, really, because they want to come here for a better life. And these nonprofit organizations, under the guise of helping them, are just trafficking them. Okay, that's what this is really all about. And I'm not shocked by this because most illegal immigrants that I've talked to a couple of them, and how it all kind of works. They've said that they use a church van. So far I've talked to Romanians, Venezuelans, right? And what they'll say is that once they get to the southern border and they get across, there is a church van that takes them to a lot of these sanctuary cities, either New York, Chicago, New York City. And I'm not shocked to find out that this bishop has this organization that has had $53 million of taxpayer funds funneled into this organization through government programs. I'm not shocked to find this out because it kind of, I don't know, they didn't know what church it was a part of, but a lot of these churches, so-called churches, they are practicing in what I would essentially call state-sanctioned human trafficking, and they're trafficking these people knowing that they're breaking the law into the country via buses or like vans. So I'm going to be right back talking a little bit about that. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. All right. Go ahead and smash that like button, share this out with your friends. So a couple of people I've talked to who have actually, gone through, they've taken, flights from Romania to Mexico, actually Romania to Spain to Mexico. So they've gone to multiple countries, which isn't seeking asylum, by the way. The rules of asylum is that you go to the country directly in which you are seeking asylum in, and you go directly to that country. You don't do this whole thing where you go through the southern border. Okay, so they're shipped into Mexico. They go through the southern border. Now, either a cartel member or a nonprofit organization gets them past the border. Okay. And the cartels, they'll charge $3,000 a head. The nonprofits will probably charge about the same. I wouldn't doubt it. And they traffic those humans over the border illegally, okay, through an illegal port of entry. Then once they're here in the States, they're gifted a van, usually from a nonprofit organization, most likely something like the Episcopal Migration Ministry, the EMM, which is this bishop who criticized Donald Trump. That's her organization, okay? And they'll provide them a van. They'll give them the keys to the van, and they'll say, hey, go to Chicago. It's a sanctuary city. You won't be deported there, right? But we all know that, hey, federal immigration law trumps that kind of stuff. And they're harboring illegal activity, and that is not, you're supposed to have respect for your government, right, as a Christian, and you're supposed to listen and obey the laws that are on the books, okay, and the federal law says that this is illegal, but you have EMM quite literally acting as if they are, human trafficker. This is state-sanctioned human traffickers. They're receiving all of this, and it's all on your dime. The $53 million that they received to do this, to carry this kind of stuff out. I mean, that's what's really unsettling about this whole thing. So the Trump administration paused a lot of programs like this bishop's program, EMM, for evaluation. We're going to get to all of that. Smash that like button. Smash the like button right now if you're watching, and share this out with your friends. We'll be right back. Woo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9 News and Talk Bloomington Normal. Yes, in the 7 o'clock hour, I do want to get to this. This is incredible. I talked about that April 1 cent.info. This is a website. David Mauser, he had actually shared it on social media. He's the superintendent of District 87. Also, it was featured on the District 87 website. Okay, so we talked about this extensively on Friday. And if you missed that show, it's archived on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. I'm always on social media, folks. But this is incredible because it turns out that they changed the verbiage on the website. Now, nobody's ever learned their lesson here in McLean County, and I don't know why, because the citizens don't like when you do this kind of stuff. It's called electioneering, and you're doing it on taxpayer dime with taxpayer resources, and that's called propaganda. And you can't do that. That's not why people fought and died in war. To preserve our elections and to preserve our republic, okay, our constitutional republic. They fought and died to preserve that and to preserve our democratic elections, our democratically held elections. Okay, people fought, died, blood was shed, okay, for this kind of law. So it's not a victimless crime. They're using taxpayer resources, and Champaign County did the same thing. They ran billboards. Nobody was held accountable for it to promote a sales tax hike. Now, they're doing the same thing on this District 87 website. The original verbiage, according to BLN News, and there's a screenshot here, and I remember because I covered it on Friday, so they must have changed it between Friday and today, Monday, District 87, or whoever runs this April 1st vote, 1 cent tax referendum PAC. And like nobody knows who runs this PAC or runs this website. And they do that on purpose. But the original verbiage was, we're school districts in McLean County are asking voters to approve a 1% Illinois County sales or Illinois County schools facility tax. Okay, now I've described what this is. It is not a 1 cent tax. It is a 1% tax on all of your total sales. When you go out and you get your coffee in the morning, if it's $5, you're going to be paying 5 cents. Okay, and that 5 cents is going to school districts. Now, on top of that, you will be paying your local sales tax, along with possible grocery tax that is going to be taxed on or tacked onto that, a state sales tax rate. You are charged astronomically here in the state of Illinois when you go and you buy products. Okay, you're charged astronomically when it comes to property taxes, which are likely going to go up in 2020. Say for the next well, we all know that it's going to go up in 2020 for this fiscal year because they all voted to raise the property tax levy. So they're increasing your taxes again via your property taxes at every level. I'm pretty sure McLean County did it, Normal. I mean, this is insanity. Okay, so they're charging you there, but they're also charging you grocery tax, which you have to keep in mind. In 2026, local municipalities were told that they can charge you a grocery tax now as well. Because the statewide elimination of the tax. I mean, Governor J.B. Pritzker did this essentially to, say, oh, here's my big press release. I'm eliminating the state's grocery tax. It just means that the locals can do it. And Governor J.B. Pritzker looks like the great guy, okay, because he eliminated the state's grocery tax. Locals can do that. And then on top of that, they can increase their local sales tax by 1%. So, I mean, it's death by 1,000 cuts, and nobody's learning their lesson. You can't do this kind of stuff. You can't ask voters to approve the 1% Illinois County schools. Now, they changed the verbiage on this website. Now they're asking voters to consider. Notice how they changed that verbiage because they know it's against the law. Whoever's running that website in District 87, shame on you for putting it and featuring it on your website. You are using taxpayer resources to advocate for a referendum. This is no different than McLean County Chair, allegedly Lizzie Johnson, and County Administrator Cassie Taylor going around and asking for funds as well for the auditor referendum to eliminate the county auditor, and going around the government building there and asking for donations towards this PAC that was established to eliminate the county auditor position. Okay, it's no different than Unit 5 using their time at a concert to vote for the Unit 5 tax increase that was a couple of years ago. Okay, and having individuals go up there in front of parents and students and say, vote for this. Okay, I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Hey, welcome to the Red Kingdom. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in each and every single day. Yes, they changed the verbiage. District 87 featured this on their website, and we all know that state code says that you can't do this kind of stuff where you use government resources to advocate for ballot initiatives or certain candidates. That is to obviously protect you, the voter, from using your taxpayer resources, from using your taxpayer money to go towards causes that you might not agree with. Okay, you might not be in favor of. So they've changed the website. I saw this on Friday. Okay, we covered this on Friday, where the website here, it says we are asking, so the school districts in McLean County are asking voters to approve the 1% Illinois County Schools Facility Tax, okay, also known as the 1 cent tax or sales tax. This isn't a 1 cent tax. It's deceptive. It is a 1% sales tax on top of your local sales tax that will go to schools directly. Okay, now keep in mind your property tax bill, a good chunk of that goes towards school districts. Okay, a very good chunk of that. Most of your property tax bill goes to the school districts. Okay. So they're claiming that the 1 cent tax, the so-called 1 cent tax, is going to fund the facilities and create safer, modern learning environments, and it'll provide property tax relief for homeowners. Not true. They can't come out and say that. Number one, they don't know if the municipalities are going to raise the property tax levy. Likely they will. Raise the property tax levy. McLean County, as you know, is not a P-TEL county, which puts limits on the county to raise your property taxes. Okay, so they might have their own limits themselves, but the state doesn't demand that they limit that, the property tax levy. So they can raise it if they want next year. We also have to keep in mind that the grocery tax is going to go up, likely the local sales tax or the local grocery tax is going to be implemented by 2026 for normal Bloomington because those municipalities are allowed to do that because Governor J.B. Pritzker eliminated the state's grocery tax. And as part of the negotiations, they're allowed to implement a grocery tax on top of also doing a 1% increase on their local sales tax. You are getting taxed to death. You are getting taxed to death. And I want to talk about this. We talked about the bishop, Marianne Budd. Your tax dollars are obviously going to her and her organization, and this is why she scolded President Donald Trump, remember, on his second day of office. And the reason why she scolded him is because she's losing money. $53 million, okay, of your taxpayer dollars through these several government programs went through those government programs to her organization. And to make matters worse, those funds were reportedly used to resettle 3,600 migrants. And by resettle migrants, I mean traffic them over the border and get them here to the United States illegally through an illegal port of entry. That's what these nonprofit organizations are doing. And under the guise of humanitarian aid and hey, we're like resettling migrants or whatever verbiage they want to use. At the end of the day, I'm calling it state-sanctioned human trafficking, where the government funnels money into this nonprofit. This nonprofit then exploits these migrants and puts them into the country illegally with no resources, essentially. And everybody's making money through this nonprofit, $53 million. I bet that didn't go into the migrants' hands. No. They gave them these crappy buses once they got over the border and said, go to the nearest sanctuary city, whether that be Chicago, New York City. How do I know this? Because I've talked to the illegal immigrants that have come to this country, and that's how they describe their travels. Okay, they fly from one country to Spain to Mexico, then the nonprofit gets them through your government dollars to Mexico to go over the border. Then they're given some money to give to either cartel members or the nonprofit themselves traffics them over the border through an illegal port of entry. They give them a van, and then they're told to go to the nearest sanctuary city. Okay, that's what's going on here. Now, I'm going to jog your memories here. This is the Episcopalian bishop, Marianne Budd. It's been uncovered that the bishop has an organization. It's called Migrant Ministries Episcopalian or Episcopal. Migrant Ministries, EMM. That's her organization. Okay. Now she's collected $53 million from the government through these government programs in 2023. Just in 2023, this is just 1 year. She's collected $53 million for a quote immigration resettlement initiative. Okay. Through her EMM organization. Take a listen. This is to jog your memory. This is who I'm talking about. Trump is actually hurting her business. Okay. That's why she scolded him. Take a look.
Let me make one final plea, Mr. President. Millions have put their trust in you. And as you told the nation yesterday, you have felt the providential hand of a loving God. In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families, some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meatpacking plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation, but the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. They are faithful members of our churches and mosques, synagogues, wadara, and temples.
Okay, so you guys remember this lady. She is the bishop, right? And she scolds President Donald Trump here, and she says the vast majority of illegals are not illegal, or not criminals. Actually, all of the illegal immigrants are criminals, by the way, because they've entered through an illegal port of entry with your help and with our tax dollars. Okay, so this is state-sanctioned illegal activity. Okay, so according to records, EMM, they received $53 million of taxpayer funds from various government programs to resettle 3,600 individuals in 2023. Budget figures for 2024 are not yet available. However, EMM sponsored 6,400 individuals in 2024 from across 48 different countries, including Afghanistan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Vietnam, and others. Since EMM has limited lobbying power, the Episcopalian Church, or the Episcopal Church, a separate legal entity, advocates for additional programs that benefit EMM in Washington, D.C. Okay, so there's a lobbying effort going on here for her to get these dollars into her EMM, her ministry, her so-called ministry, okay? So there's a lobbying effort going on at a very high level. The Episcopal Church lobbies on behalf of these organizations. 2012 Government Accountability Office report states that funding is based on the number of refugees they serve, so affiliates have an incentive here to maintain or increase the number of refugees, so-called refugees. Let's just remember that these are illegal immigrants that they're trafficking through the border. They resettle each year, so they have incentive to traffic as many people as possible over that border, okay? And they don't want that number to decrease because they're going to get more money if they increase it, okay? So it's pathetic how she begged Trump to have mercy on these people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings. This is exploiting migrant labor. They're funneling as many people into this country as possible under the guise of resettling migrants or getting them to participate in our economic development. Remember in 2022, Secretary of State Tony Blinken signed a 2022, it was like a deal with Tent Partnership, which is also a refugee program where you take the migrants and you put them in jobs across the country. And Tent Partnership is partnered with many private sector corporations, including HelloFresh, which is now under investigation for child immigrant labor. Okay, so this is really, really bad stuff. These nonprofit organizations are participating in what I would call human trafficking. So Donald Trump, she begged for him to have mercy on the people who pick our crops. These people are the evilest kind of people because they're funneling these people in because they're brown. And then because they can, she's a white woke woman. She's funneling brown people into these jobs, and they're exploiting these people in order for their organization to get money, more money, so they can skim off the top. $53 million, I'll tell you right now, didn't go to the immigrants that they're saying that they're helping. Okay, they got them crappy vans to travel from the border to these sanctuary cities, didn't put them up in housing. How do I know this? Because you see them on the street corners. They're panhandling. They don't have houses, and they didn't do anything for these immigrants, these illegal immigrants. Okay, except traffic them through the border illegally and through an illegal port of entry. Okay, so EMM, this organization, received $53 million to contribute to the border crisis, the open border crisis, okay? And it's morally corrupt that she paints herself as the one being Christian-like. You're taking people who don't look like you, and you're trafficking them over the border, putting them in positions and exploiting their labor, putting them in jobs and exploiting their labor. So that way you, through your nonprofit organization, get more and more millions and millions of dollars, and you can skim off the top and make millions. Okay, so while the left pretends that they're the compassionate ones for defending open borders, that couldn't be further from the truth. You're not compassionate. In fact, you're racist, and it's disgusting what you're doing to these poor people from these different countries. These policies hurt Americans, but they also hurt the immigrants. Okay, the immigrants that they claim to be helping. They're violating laws. They're illegally trafficking them over the border through an illegal port of entry. They're also putting them in jobs for way less pay than they would get if they were a U.S. citizen and went through the legal ports of entry and claimed asylum, got a work visa, whatever the case. So she profits off of policies that contribute to the murder of Blake and Riley. Okay, and she tries to paint herself as some sort of savior of the world and advocating for some of the most satanic. That's all I can really say about this, is that it is evil. Human trafficking is a satanic cause, and that's what they're all about. The Bible warns us of people like her, and for this reason, it could not be more evident where she stands. She stands on the side of evil, and that is why she, of course, scolded President Donald Trump. It's because she's losing her money. She's losing the $53 million for her organization, and it's probably even more than that because we don't have the 2024 numbers, but in 2023, she got $53 million, folks, and I guarantee you, how do I know that the immigrants aren't getting that money through her organization, and they're not helping the immigrants with that money? It's because all the immigrants are homeless and they're holding up signs, feed me, spare change, right? And they're out there panhandling and they don't have houses or jobs, and they're in these jobs and they're being exploited. There's Department of Labor investigations into HelloFresh, who worked with one of these types of nonprofit organizations like EMM. So I don't really want to hear it from this lady. I got to take a quick break. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Since when did the United States since when is it our problem to solve the AIDS crisis in Africa? I never understood this. It seems like it's on our shoulders for some reason, and I don't think that there's really anything that we can do. I'll talk about it here next on Conservative Cat. Hey, go ahead, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. I want to get to some of your comments. Wrecking the Dems. They're mad at America. They can't dodge. Yeah, I love that ball, or that dodgeball. I think that's what that movie is called. That's great. Yeah. There's nowhere to hide. Everybody is exposing what they've been doing through the Biden administration, what they've been doing with the USAID dollars. I'm disappointed I didn't see any Elon Musk commercials. He was supposed to reportedly 5 commercials, 30-second commercials, $40 million. I didn't see any of them in the Super Bowl commercials. It would have been great to see how the USAID spent our money. Governor J.B. Pritzker has brought California communism to our cesspool state, Illinois, pretty much California now, but with lousy weather, exactly. Actually, it's kind of disturbing how similar Illinois is to California, in that our legislators, they don't even write their own bills anymore. Quite literally, his last name is Gonzalez. He's a state representative, and he created, well, he didn't even create it. He like literally plagiarized. Okay, that's the best way I could describe this. California's electric vehicle mandates. It was legislation. Edgar Gonzalez, I think, is his name. So he took that legislation quite literally, word for word, just changed, like swapped out California for Illinois. And that was the legislation that he had proposed and introduced via bill. I don't know whatever happened in that bill. I'll have to see if it passed. It was very controversial, even for a supermajority Democrat state like Illinois. For them to get that passed would have been incredible. But there's all kinds of problems with that. Obviously, we have legislators who aren't even crafting their own bills anymore, and they're straight up just taking the bills that are crafted out of California and applying them to the state of Illinois, which is insane. I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Okay. I did find this out. So Representative Edgar Gonzalez filed new legislation. Now, this legislation, from what I can tell, has not passed, but they might pass it in 2025 here, this legislative session. We'll have to see. But the new legislation requires Illinois to adopt California's vehicle emission standards, HB 5824. And it was stopped in committee earlier this year. So this was in 2024. Okay, July 2024. So it didn't go forward last legislative session, which is good news. But it would require Illinois to adopt their California's vehicle emission standards, eliminating the sale of traditional cars, trucks, and SUVs by 2035. So literally no gas-powered vehicles, no combustible engines in 2020 by 2025. It would also require government entities, both state and local, to transition away from traditional gas. So Normal has already kind of started doing this, where there was a project, I think it was Normal 2.0 or whatever, where this is going to be like one of the first in the state to, transition. Now, Chicago, they do this kind of stuff all the time, where they don't use natural gas, or like there's an ordinance that bans the use of natural gas. Okay, so Normal hasn't done that yet, but they for this specific project, I think it's called Normal 2.0 or whatever, they banned natural gas for this specific project. Now, Chicago, I think that they've actually created an ordinance where if you're developing in the city of Chicago, that you cannot use natural gas. If you want to build anything new in Chicago, then you have to use all electric. Okay. It also requires local entities like state and local governments to transition away from diesel-powered vehicles, with limited exceptions, which means, you don't use diesel-powered vehicles. So, like, sometimes I think that there's a car stipend that Pam Reese gets, the city manager or something. So if it's a stipend that you get with taxpayer dollars to get a car, you can't use that on a gas-powered vehicle. You have to use it on an electric vehicle. Good morning. Hey, you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. We've got some people in the text line and on the stream. You guys can find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Joe, he says, sad that Governor J.B. Pritzker has brought California communism to this now cesspool of a state, Illinois. Pretty much California now, but with lousy weather. Yeah. I want to touch on that real quickly, because people don't know that this is going on at the state level. State Representative Edgar Gonzalez last year during legislative session. Now, this bill was stopped. Okay, so it didn't pass. HB 5824 Now, essentially what Gonzalez did here is he didn't even write the legislation himself. He just said that Illinois is going to be adopting California's vehicle emission standards. He didn't create his own Illinois vehicle emission standards. He just wanted to adopt California's, which is kind of lazy if you ask me. Why not create your own? Like, what, you're going to have the California legislators legislate here in Illinois too? Straight up communism. Okay, so HB 5824, what that would have done, it would have required Illinois to adopt the California vehicle emission standards, which would have eliminated trucks, cars, and SUVs, all gas power, all traditional gas powered vehicles by 2035. It also would have required government entities. We know a little something about this here in Normal because they did this. They outlawed natural gas for a specific project. I think it was like Normal 2.0 or something like that, which is not a good look because actually a federal court kind of struck this down in California when California tried to do this, because you can't do that. You can't like control people's utilities and the way people use their utilities. Like restaurants, you can't mandate them to not use gas powered or gas kitchen stoves. Okay, you can't mandate them to do that. So Normal, that would have meant like a restaurant, like they wouldn't have been able, through Normal 2.0, this project, they wouldn't have been able to use natural gas. They would have had to use electric, and there would have been no gas stovetops, and you can't do that. Okay, that's like totally unconstitutional. But that would have required government entities to outlaw and to transition away from traditional gas. Okay, so you'd have to, via ordinance, say, sorry, developers, you can't come in here with your natural gas. You'd have to go all electric. Okay, Normal has already kind of done this. They haven't crafted an ordinance that I'm aware of yet, where they outlaw natural gas from ever being developed in Normal ever again. That's kind of outrageous. Chicago, I believe, has tried to do that and has done that, being fought probably in the courts right now. But this bill was really, really sucky. And, our legislators in Illinois have gotten so lazy where they've kind of defaulted to the California legislators, and they're just taking what the California legislators do, like literally verbatim. Like this bill was like straight up out of California and out of the California legislator's mouth, which is what the hell is the point of even electing people in Illinois if they're just going to follow what California does? We might as well participate in the California elections. I did talk about the AIDS crisis in Africa. Don't know why that's the United States problem, but according to the UN, potential funding cuts, this is the number they came up with, 6 million people are now at risk of death. I think that's fear-mongering. It's unclear what evidence they have to suggest that this funding was helping people, 6.3 million people, to solve the problem there of AIDS. I don't think that the United States is really contributing all that much to that. Okay, so a UN official is saying that it's going to could cause 6.3 million people to die. Okay, this funding that we're pulling from the USAID. According to UN News, the U.S. pause in foreign assistance funding has created confusion in the vital work of community HIV prevention. Despite a waiver issued for HIV/AIDS programs, the UN agency to combat the still deadly disease. Okay, so they're confused. They don't know how to combat this without the USAID funding. PEPFAR, PEPFAR, is not reauthorized if they're not reauthorized between 2025 and 2029 to continue their HIV/AIDS work. Other resources are not found for the HIV, or other resources are not found outside of the USAID funding. There would be a 400% increase in AIDS deaths. This is what a United Nations official said. Okay, that's 6.3 million people, 6.3 million AIDS-related deaths will occur in the future. Wow. In other words, their lives are not at risk, but these global unelected bureaucrats would rather fear-monger the global masses to assist in their panhandling efforts. Okay, they haven't, even with this money, combated the AIDS crisis. Okay, I mean, there is no evidence this money, the USAID money, has worked to end AIDS, okay, in Africa. According to the UN, the United States finances 70% of the overall AIDS response. It's unclear how they are preventing or curing the disease, considering there is no cure for this disease. Okay, they haven't had much success over there because guess what? There are 25.6 million people in Africa living with HIV, making them over half of the global AIDS population. Okay, so pretty much all of the AIDS cases, when you look at this thing, are in Africa, like all of it, which proves that they're doing something wrong. Okay, in Africa, obviously there's not like, I don't know much about the AIDS condition, but it's doubtful that the USA or the US funding is going to solve this. Okay, there's something bigger going on where AIDS is a crisis in Africa. Okay, why does it seem the more money we spend trying to end the AIDS crisis in Africa, the worse it gets? 25.6 million people in Africa. There is no silver lining. It doesn't appear like there is any end to this AIDS crisis. So I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Hey, go ahead and smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Yes, to approve this local sales tax for the schools, county facility tax, or whatever it's called. They're calling it a 1 cent tax now. It's totally wrong that they did this. Now, originally, they were asking voters to approve. Okay, now District 87 featured this website on their website. Okay, so now something to keep in mind is that District 87, via your tax dollars, is supposed to maintain and manage that website. They probably have somebody, they've hired somebody who probably makes a pretty hefty salary to keep that updated, that website, and to inform the public about, school days, events, things like that. Putting this propaganda, quite literally, that's what this is. It's taxpayer-funded electioneering going on again. Why does this keep happening here in McLean County? I'll tell you why. It's because the Illinois State Police, whoever's in charge of this, and it's kind of unclear who is supposed to be in charge of this kind of behavior or this kind of criminal activity. It's unclear who's supposed to be policing this, but nobody's been policing it. The electioneering and using taxpayer resources to sway an election either one way or another for a candidate or one way or another for a ballot initiative. Okay. We know what's going on at a county level with McLean County Chair Elizabeth Johnson, Cassie Taylor, the county administrator, where they were accused, and there has been an Illinois State Board of Elections complaint filed where they're accused of soliciting donations on company time, on government property, right? Government time and government property, where we're paying for those individuals to be there, and in their time of being there to serve the people, what they're doing is they are going around soliciting donations, allegedly, for this PAC that was established to eliminate the county auditor. That's not what we're paying them to do with our tax dollars. We're their bosses. And they're supposed to be doing their jobs. Now, this is interesting. School districts in McLean County are asking to consider an Illinois County Facilities Tax, okay? Now, prior to consider, this word here, it was approve. We talked about this. I have the receipts. On my show yesterday, I think I actually pulled up the website and I read it verbatim, and it said approve. Okay, so we now know that they changed this, which is an admission of guilt. They know it's wrong what they did, District 87, putting this website on there. This is clearly, and they've got all these logos here as well, so it's not just District 87, but all of these school districts should be in trouble for taxpayer-funded electioneering. That's what this is. So now, whether these guys, I mean, they're putting their logos here. It's endorsing a specific ballot initiative for you to approve the 1% county sales or county schools facility tax. This is a big deal, folks, because you're being taxed into oblivion. You've got your property taxes, local sales tax, grocery taxes. Your property tax levies went up. Grocery tax is going to go up in 2026. Your local sales tax is going to go up in 2026. So this is death by a thousand cuts. So yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's just tragic. What they think that they can get away with. Now, this is the UN official I want to play. This is regarding the AIDS crisis in Africa that we've been funding. It seems like the more money we spend on this, we're not any closer to ending the AIDS crisis in Africa. In fact, it gets worse the more money we spend. So I don't think that the U.S. funding is going to do anything to solve the AIDS crisis in Africa. Something is going on there because there's 25.6 million people in Africa who are living with HIV. That makes them, making them over half of the global AIDS population. Okay, so why are we funding global treatments when the U.S. can't solve this problem? It sounds like something that Africa has to solve. Okay, unfortunately for them, this is emotional blackmail. What this woman does, it's not going to work because we're going to maintain this America First model. I hope, under President Donald Trump. And this woman's crocodile tears, which we're going to get to here in just a second, they're not going to solve the AIDS crisis in Africa either, much like the U.S. spending won't. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends, subscribe to the channel. Wow! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. Now, PEPFAR, PEPFAR, if they're not reauthorized between 2025 and 2029, or other resources become available for HIV response, quote, there would be a 400% increase in AIDS deaths in Africa, according to the UN. Okay, so the UN official here, I'm going to get player, her name is Christine Stegling. She's crying here over the USA or over the AIDS crisis in Africa, and that 63 million people are going to die because of the AIDS. Look, 6 million people in Africa are living with HIV. It doesn't matter how much money we spend on this issue, it never gets any better. So that tells me that there's something wrong, something going on in Africa that they need to solve before they get way more money from us. Okay, these global treatments that we're funding these global treatments when the United States can't solve this problem. Okay, we're funding it, but it's a problem that we don't even really know what's going on there with this problem and why there's 25.6 million people in Africa with HIV, making them over half of the global AIDS population, which proves that they're doing something wrong. Okay, and it's doubtful more U.S. funding is going to do anything to help them. Take a listen to this woman. Here we go.
We have 5,000 public health worker contracts that are funded by U.S. assistance, and all of these in all regions of Ethiopia have been terminated. And 10,000 data clerks, very important in Ethiopia, so that we continue monitoring and ensuring that people are on treatment. So as UNAIDS, we estimate that if PEPFAR wasn't reauthorized between 2025 and 2029 and other resources were not found for the HIV response, there would be a 400% increase in AIDS death. That's 6.3 million people, 6.3 million AIDS-related deaths that will occur in future. We have 5,000.
Okay, so her and her crocodile tears, that's not going to fix anything. It's not going to do much of anything to solve the AIDS crisis in Africa, much like the USAID funding that was going over there. It hasn't. It seems like the more money we spend over on this problem, it gets worse. So unfortunately for them, this is emotional blackmail. And it's not going to work because we are going to maintain this America First model. And it's unfortunate, and Africa should get it together, and try to figure out what's going on, where they're accounting for, and that's, another thing to, they're not getting it under control. And they're over half of the global AIDS population here in Africa. If they're not getting it under control, that's not fair to the rest of us globally. Okay, they need to get it under control. And the U.S., I don't think that our money is going to help any. So let's talk about this. I want to talk about this woman. She cuts down this American flag. You guys are going to like this. This is kind of incredible. She cuts down this American flag and puts up a Mexican flag. So the police get involved with this, and she's ultimately arrested. She's from Bakersfield, California, which is right on the border. And she was arrested for replacing the American flag with the Mexican flag. But then really what she was arrested for here, folks, is she threatened to kill the responding officers and their children. Yes. Can somebody say crazy? That's insane. So she's 24 years old, which is a year younger than me. And it's just kind of shocking that somebody would do this in this country. And it's like this, like, if you want to go live in Mexico so bad, it's literally a hop, skip, and a jump. Just go back to Mexico then. But they won't do it. So let's take a listen to this woman. She's on body cam footage here, and she was found tearing down an American flag, and she, on this flagpole, put up a Mexican flag. Take a listen to this. Here we go.
You're not gonna tell me what to do. This is Mexican, man.
Oh, okay.
Look at that flag, because that flag isn't on the floor, is it?
Hey.
Is it?
Hey.
You can't say I'm disrespecting. No, esta es mi tierra. Esta es mi tierra. Esta es mi tierra.
Come here.
Okay, my people kill you.
Turn around.
I'm going in peace, and you're hurting me, and you're gonna regret it when you. Okay.
Hey.
Touch me, my. When your kids die. When your kids die, you're squishing my hand, and they already know. You don't need to take me.
Stop her.
Take me. Take me. Take me.
Take her down.
Take me.
She's on the ground. She's all right. We'll get her. Stop.
All this happening this morning around 9:30. The Kern County Sheriff's Office says 24-year-old Crystal Aguilar cut the chain securing the flagpole at the entrance to the park, removed the American flag, threw it into the mud, and replaced it with the flag of Mexico. When park rangers attempted to detain Aguilar, she responded with a slew of threats. She was taken into custody and booked into jail on several charges, including threatening a peace officer, vandalism, and resisting arrest.
Yeah, vandalism. So that was exactly vandalism. This is a park. Okay, this woman at this park in Bakersfield was arrested, charged with vandalism. According to KCSO, 24-year-old Crystal Aguilar was arrested after she cut down the American flag. Now, look, folks, these people despise the United States so much, then go back to Mexico, okay? If you can't bear to look at our flag, why do you want to live here, okay? They would never actually live in the country they blindly and naively defend. You want to know why? Because America's the best, okay? And this footage shows deputies confronted her. She was charged with vandalism, threatening a peace officer, and resisting arrest. What is the point of any of this? I mean, really, does she even know what's going on with this? I mean, it's like a blind leftist rage that she's thrown in here, and she just goes and she puts up this Mexican flag. Lunatics defending Mexico to the point of getting arrested and threatening police officers, yet they remain in the country that they despise. So if you hate it so much, why do you stay here? Okay, why do you stay in California if you hate it so much? Just go back home. Okay, I respect the pride of your country, but like, you don't even live in that country that you will defend to the point of getting arrested. These people don't act with common sense or logic. We have to understand that. They are beholden to this deranged ideology or this deranged defense, naive defense of this country, which makes no sense. And I think she's just enraged by this fake leftist cause. You know, it's racist. America's racist. And she's just has this ideology, and she's just so clouded. Her judgment is so clouded. Or while she thinks she's morally superior for whatever she is doing here in this park where she, throws the American flag in the mud, she now has an arrest record, and nobody thank but herself for that one. Okay, ladies. So Likely she's going to blame America. She's going to say, America arrested me for, my freedom to, or for, for expressing my Mexican heritage, which, I mean, like, lady, it's vandalism. Okay. You went into a public park and you tore down a flag, threw it in the mud, and then you proceeded to yell how you were going to kill these officers' children. So yeah, she's likely going to blame America for this arrest, but really she's got nobody to blame but herself. I do want to talk about the Anheuser-Busch CEO. This is an interesting call. He's calling for beer partners to replace the word domestic with the label American. So sometimes when you're at a restaurant, they give you a menu and it says domestic beers. Under there, you'll see Bud Light product or Bud products, Anheuser-Busch products. And that's, how they've been marketing beer for years now, domestic. Now, I really like the American title. I think it's cool. I think it's very patriotic. But I think that this company is trying to recover from the Bud Light disaster, and I don't know if they ever will. According to sources, they're still not getting those customers back, and I don't know if they're ever going to recover from the Dylan Mulvaney scandal here, where they sent him a can with his face on it and made him an ambassador. So according to Fox Business, Anheuser-Busch is encouraging its distributors and partners to replace the term domestic with American when marketing the beer, arguing that the term reflects the industry's identity better. In a Wednesday letter, a call for American beers, the CEO, Brandon Whitworth, expressed his dissatisfaction with the longstanding use of domestic to describe American-made beer, saying that it shows up on bar menus, beer stands, grocery aisles, things like that, domestic beers. You'll see like the little, sign that says domestic beers, and right under there are all the American-made beers. I really like the idea of changing the name from domestic to American. I think that's awesome. And he says that they use this term way too frequently and they should change it with America. Okay. So he goes, I don't like the word domestic. It's unclear how much this is all going to help them. And ultimately, it's up to the unwoke mob to forgive and forget. And I don't know if I think at this point, I'm willing to forgive. Like, it's been a couple of years now. And they seem to have corrected some of their commercials, especially with the Super Bowl commercial last night. I saw the Budweiser horses are back. It's also unclear if they got input from Dylan Mulvaney about, changing domestic to America, but that's neither here nor there. But here's the quote here from the CEO. He says in the letter, I'm asking Anheuser-Busch team and wholesalers to make the change to our bar menus, change to our venue boards, change to the signs, change to the reports, change to the jargon, and we're insisting upon American. I hope other American brewers and wholesalers will join us in this call to change it from domestic to American. Well, the word is not necessarily incorrect. This is what he says. He said it doesn't fully capture the spirit and the passion that is intrinsic to the American beer industry and its brands. It's not known what made him embrace this national pride over the trans pride that he had a few years ago. But they haven't recovered, according to a former employee with Anheuser-Busch, that they haven't been able to recover with the whole Bud Light thing. Okay, the whole Dylan Mulvaney debacle. So, quote, this is an Anheuser-Busch operations. She works as the president of operations, or Anson Freericks. I'll have to look this up, but they haven't recovered. This is what the former president of operations said. So this is a former employee. They haven't recovered. Despite companies, backing away. We saw Walmart back away. We saw McDonald's back away from DEI and ESG policies. The damage is done to Bud Light, I think, at this point. And I don't know if you ever recover from this. I really don't know if you ever wind up recovering from, this. I'll play it here. Here's Dylan Mulvaney. This was a couple of years ago, I think, at this point. It's absolutely crazy. 2023. Yeah, 2023 is when this, I think, all went down with Dylan Mulvaney, which, I mean, gosh, I can't believe that they did this. Take a listen to this.
Hi. Impressive carrying skills, right? I got some Bud Lights for us. So I kept hearing about this thing called March Madness, and I thought we were all just having a hectic month, but it turns out it has something to do with sports. and I'm not sure exactly which sport, but either way, it's a cause to celebrate. This month, I celebrated my day 365 of womanhood, and Bud Light sent me possibly the best gift ever, a can with my face on it. Check out my Instagram story to see how you can enjoy March Madness with Bud Light and maybe win some money too. Love ya!
So creepy. Ah, I guess American Made is much better. It's a marketing tactic, and I mean, I think that's a better tactic than, I don't know, putting this tranny's face, this dude's face on a can. I would say that that's probably, a better marketing strategy, calling, the beer not domestic but American. But time is going to have to, time will tell if they make a comeback. I don't know if Anheuser-Busch ever will. People were really upset by that a couple of years ago, and I don't know if they're ever going to recover. I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. You go ahead, smash that like button. When we come back, we're going to be talking about this local sales tax. Send her back to Mexico, or burrow back to Mexico. I don't know what burrow is. Is that Spanish for something? I didn't take Spanish in high school. I only took French. But yeah, I just don't understand. She's crying and complaining about, you've got this woman crying and complaining about America so much to where she detests even looking at the American flag, and where she throws it in the mud and wants to put up the Mexico flag. Like, this Bakersfield, California is not that far from the Mexican border. Like, why doesn't she just go back to Mexico if she loves it so much, right? But at the end of the day, they wouldn't want to live in the country that they're so naively defending, because it's a terrible country and America is awesome. And it's just unfortunate that they subscribe to an ideology where their brain is pretty much mashed potatoes. Like, they have no idea what they're even defending at this point. I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Y'all will never learn. I don't understand why, nobody ever is going to learn from, others' mistakes. Okay, so allegedly, you've got McLean County Chair Liz Johnson and the County Administrator Cassie Taylor involved in soliciting donations for a PAC established to eliminate the county auditor. There is apparently Lizzie Johnson's lawyer. She lawyered up for the State Board of Elections hearing. I think it's going to be in a couple of days. She lawyered up for this, and I think that her lawyer has filed now to get this case dismissed. So we've got that at McLean County. Now, I truly do believe that would have never happened had we, taken a strong stance on this back when Unit 5 did this whole thing where they had, somebody go up there and, say, hey, approve the Unit 5 tax hike. Okay, remember when they were threatening to cancel all of the extracurricular activities for the school district, the Unit 5 school district, if you didn't approve this referendum, and you did approve it, the Yes for Unit 5 PAC, right? They went up there, they tabled for certain school board candidates at this music concert. And this is not good, okay? Because this is so apparently it's a Class B misdemeanor what these local school districts have now done. So Unit 5 has done it. Allegedly, you had Lizzie Johnson, though we're going to have to see what happens with this Illinois State Board of Elections case. I think it's in a couple of days, this hearing. Somebody needs to take a strong position on this because it just keeps happening, and it's not good. You've got local school district now, District 87, putting this on their website, asking voters to approve the 1% sales tax increase. It is the school's facility or the county school's facility tax or whatever, where the school district are asking voters to approve this. And they put this on their website. So the website is supposed to be maintained by somebody likely with a high salary there at District 87, but taxpayers, right? We maintain that website with our taxpayer dollars. They can't feature referendum questions and urge voters to ask or to vote yes for this kind of stuff. So Class B misdemeanor, you've got it laid out in state codes. No public funds shall be used to urge any elector to vote for or against any candidate or proposition, or be appropriated for political or campaign purposes to any candidate or political organization. Okay, I mean, it's pretty dang clear. The state law prohibits this kind of activity. So it's really unfortunate that nobody has, Hayworth put it on their website. Olympia put it on their website. You've got District 87 putting it on their website. I mean, this is not, people have fought and died, blood has been shed to preserve our democracy. And these people are just crapping all over it when they do things like this. You can't use government dollars. You can't use public funds to promote certain campaigns or candidates. You just can't do it. It'd be similar to that of, I don't know, let's say Unit 5, okay, the school teachers, or Unit 5 putting on their website, or District 87 in this case, they put the thing. It'd be similar to that of if they put, Donald Trump paraphernalia, political paraphernalia on their website and urged people to vote for Donald Trump. Okay, that would be very bad. We have a system in place. Let's try to follow the law, guys, right? You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. We'll be back tomorrow morning, bright and early. Bye-bye. Love you. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just type it in your search bar, Conservative Cat Show.